Welcome to List Off. I'm Ozzy.
I'm Nat, and this time we will be talking about our top 5 films that we will never see.
Yeah, like this is a stupid list, right? Because obviously everyone in the world should take in all of the culture and form their own opinion on it. But unfortunately, we die too young to be
Sure.
able to do that, right? So you have to make decisions about what you are going to watch and what you aren't. And you use your prejudices and your
Things you've learned and your prejudices in this case aren't necessarily a bad thing. There's some films where you go, I don't think that's going to be for me.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. But it's a dumb list. It's a dumb list. Is
it's a dumb list.
if you're not
But
gonna,
I've interpreted it in lots of different ways, as I'll talk about as we go on.
oh,
Shall we begin?
yeah, we should start with you. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is the 1999 film Boys Don't Cry, and as you were saying before, it's how we kind of interpret what we mean. And like you say, this is a list I would find quite difficult. I like films, and I like to get a breadth of films, and I like to try and watch films that might challenge me and might be things I don't necessarily think I'll like. Films are probably my biggest thing. I like watching them. Again, I like to have a full breadth of things. I like to try things out. I don't know about them, and I'm aware that I have these prejudices. So this list is hard in a way because I like to challenge what I think I like, or a director I haven't seen any films by, or get an idea of who they are and what they've done. And I don't personally have a problem with the film Boys Don't Cry. In fact, it came out in 1999, and it was one of those films that was like kind of on lots of best of year lists, and I was kind of intrigued to see it. So much so, this is only on my list for this reason. It is probably a very good movie. I assume it's a good movie. It's on my list, and it makes the grade for this reason, because I bought Boys Don't Cry on DVD when it came out at Virgin Megastore because I was convinced this looks like a good movie. Looks like a good movie. The problem with it is a depressing seeming film. It's obviously going to challenge me and probably upset me. And as someone who owns a DVD, I have had that DVD for 20 years. And there has never been an occasion in the last 20 years where I will ever go, this film's going to upset me. It's someone, it's gonna challenge me. It's gonna upset me. There's never a point where I will go, hey, you know what I'm in the mood for tonight? Boys Don't Cry. And I really realized that after I bought it. Like, there was a point where I kept going, hey, I'm not going to watch that now. It's just upsetting. That's what's going to upset me. It's just going to be a sad film. It's a true story, and it's gonna upset me. And I just go, there's never going to be an occasion, I realized, where I will want to watch it.
Yeah, you've proven
So
that over 20 years.
Proven it. So I would say that's probably a factual films I'll never see.
That's a
And that's the
clever.
only reason why it's on my list. It's for that reason. Is that I think it's probably a good movie. I'm not going to see it.
Yeah, that's a good reason to have one on this list. Mine are nothing like that, but that's a good reason. Which Virgin Megastore did you buy it from?
Tottenham Court Road.
Okay, just checking. Shout out to Marble Arch.
You know what? Yeah, I think already it was a film that I think it cost me $9.99, which suggests it was probably already in a sale at that point. I mean, like, it's Hilary Swank giving an Oscar-winning, I think, performance. It's probably really good. I respect everyone involved in it. I'm sure. I just think I actually will never watch it.
My number 5 is Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. And this could be you could substitute this for pretty much any DC superhero film that's come out after the second Batman one. I could have seen the third Batman one, but I didn't. it could easily have been Suicide Squad as well. But I like superheroes. We know each other because of,
Yeah.
I used to work in the comic book shop and you were a customer, and then you worked in the comic book shop and I was a sometime customer. So
Mhm.
I like superheroes, but I could only be bothered with DC superheroes like Batman and Superman when they're really good, right? I could go and see a Marvel film that was just kind of good or okay, but I'm not going to see a Batman film unless it's amazing. And I'm not going to see a Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice was like slated and sounded awful, and it's got terrible people in it, and it's the worst director, and there is no way I'm going to watch that film. Like, my time is not that precious, but it is more precious than that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I have seen the film, and I couldn't wholeheartedly recommend it.
I
Half-heartedly recommend it.
I think you'll have seen at least 4 out of 5 of mine. That's the other thing. You watch a lot more films than I do.
Oh, that's it. I watch a lot of films. I like watching films. Like it gives me no pleasure, and I'll sort of as I go along, I'll explain why these are the ones where I kind of draw a line and go, nah. And actually, it was difficult for me to come up with 5 where I'd kind of go, yeah, I'm not going to watch that.
I've hidden behind me, look, a copy of Superman
Well,
Batman World's Finest. Uh,
show
by
you're not prejudiced against Superman and Batman.
I'm not prejudiced against Superman and Batman. I like them both in their own ways. They're both, flawed guys, but
Hmm.
I'm all for them if they're well drawn and well
Yeah,
written,
it's
literally or figuratively.
Steve Rude drawn book of
Steve
World
Steve
Finest.
Steve Rude drawing Batman and Superman, good. Ben Affleck, bad. That's
I won't argue with you. I won't argue with you. I won't argue.
what's your number 4?
My number 4 is a film called a Serbian film. Have you heard of this film?
It's called S.
Serbian film. I didn't know it came out in 2010, and it feels like it's a film that people almost like challenge you to see. Like it's one of those ones like, oh, it's so dark and it's so hard to watch. And it's actually really horrible and disturbing. And actually, when I watched it, it made me feel sick. And I go, okay, yeah, I don't want to see that. And it's all kind of it feels like it's become a bit of a, like, I know people that have seen it, and it's not that it's not that they're bad for wanting to see it. It just feels like I've just ticked past an age where I'd ever find that interesting or want to see it. I've had people go, do you know what it's about though? And when I've said no and had it described to me, it's like I sort of shake my head and go, I mean, it just sounds awful by how, like, and you kind of, it feels like it's a film designed to challenge sensibilities to the point where it sort of becomes slightly embarrassing.
Yeah,
And it's like, yeah, I mean, it would upset me. It'd be horrible. I don't want to see that on the
but
screen.
that's a quite a young man thing to do, is to be like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch the most disturbing stuff and see if it disturbs me.
yeah.
That's
And they go, did it? Yeah, it did. It really disturbed me. I hated it. And he goes, yeah, I mean, I don't want to see that. I mean, that as a description does nothing for me. I like to be challenged. I
Mm.
like to see stuff where I'm kind of shocked or whatever. But the idea that someone's making a film that almost seems designed to just be the most extreme version of something horrible makes me go, I'm all right, thanks. Don't ever need to see that. I'm quite happy for it to pass by. Not tempted, no, not tempted at all.
You're making me think of more that I could have put on my list now. Oh, I think I felt like that for a long time. Like all those kind of like horror films where they're like, "There's real cannibalism in it," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's not nice." All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You've
Um,
probably seen all of them as well.
I've seen some films. I don't think they've got any real cannibalism in it. I quite like ones where they say that, but it obviously isn't true, and you can plainly see it's spaghetti or something. But I like it when the marketing is saying stuff like, "Yeah, it's real. They're real vampires." What? I mean, I quite like that because often it's some like cheesy Italian movie where they've just got sort of marketing guys doing just making stuff up to, and that I'm fine with. And it's never particularly unsettling or anything. It's usually quite amusing with sort of pinkish coloured blood and things, and it's just quite good fun. No problem with that. What is your number 4?
All right, my number 4 kind of ties into the last top 5 list we did, and that's the 2007 jukebox musical Across the Universe, which I'm sure you've seen. Have you seen it?
No, no, doesn't
Okay.
appeal. Doesn't appeal at all.
I hate the concept of jukebox musicals. I hate the reality of jukebox musicals. I particularly hate the idea of a Beatles jukebox musical about an American college kid romance or something, whatever it is. I watched the trailer to that film at the time and was, it put me off my popcorn in the cinema. And I can't, it's just the most cash grab rubbish. And, Paul and Yoko and, hopefully, George was dead by then, but like Ringo, they all signed off on it, and they were like, sure, let's have some more money. Like, that is just terrible,
Yeah.
and
It's quite artless, and I think it is. It makes me sad. I felt that when I saw the film about the man who forgets, who's the only one who remembers that the Beatles exist. And again, it's a film I find slightly upsetting that it's been signed off on, because it just makes me think, like, what the Beatles is, right? It's not this. It sort of doesn't. It's not even aware of what's good about the Beatles,
no,
and it's signed off by the Beatles. And you go, I mean, why have you signed off on this?
I was going to put Yesterday on the list, but I probably will see it one day because the idea is so stupid that it's kind of funny and
Oh,
interesting.
sorry, yeah, I
And
saw it.
the stupidest thing about the idea of that to me is the idea that all the songs would hit in the same way if they were new now. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
because none of this other stuff would exist in the same way. And we'd have had all the other stuff in between. It just like all time travel films, it doesn't really work, right?
I mean, yeah, I think you'll probably have a bit of fun with it for all those reasons.
Right.
All these questions come up all the way through, like,
Yeah.
but what do you mean? What do you even mean?
And there's good people involved with it. Whereas Across the Universe, as far as I'm aware, there's no redeeming features of it. I think
Yeah.
I was looking at some website, and the someone had written like a 1-star review for Across the Universe, and it says, no plot, question mark, question mark, question mark. Also, I hate the Beatles. Which I just think is like, yeah, you shouldn't have watched that one. I didn't watch it because I do like the Beatles, and you shouldn't have watched it because you don't like the Beatles.
That should have been on that guy's list. That should have been top of his top 5 films you'll never see.
Yeah, think again, Cabinet Man, and the A in man is a 4. So Cabinet Man.
You think of like the Beatles, again, going back to the Beatles, having spoken about it for so long, but you think of something like Apple, and it's the ultimate. I like those stories of people that have a lot of money that try and become philanthropists and fund things, and it never works. And I really like the idealized idea of it. I think it's such a lovely thing, and it's what everyone thinks they'll do if they have a lot of money. But then to sign off on something which again just seems pointless and totally without merit or anything, just seems like, why? That's not what you signed up for, right?
Yeah, I would say that, the Beatles gave the world, or George, managed to make it possible to make the film Life of Brian, which I think is one of the best comedy films ever made. And then whatever, 40, 50 years later, they let Across the Universe come out. It's just big decline.
It's certainly a criticism where when you described it, like you said, I hope George was dead by then. Which is a cruel, it shows how bad the film must be if you wish an early death on one of the Beatles so they don't actually have to witness it. So it shows how much you dislike the film. Not seen it.
Have you seen the 70s Beatles film with the Bee Gees?
No, never seen it. I'd quite like to.
You can't get that, can you? It's not like available to.
No, I think they've suppressed it as much as possible.
You could. I read some quotes about that. And one of the Bee Gees is quoted as saying like he's offended. They're always offended. He's offended that the Beatles didn't like it, and he says something like, "Well, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band never existed, so we do exist. So we are the real Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band." And it was like, you idiots! Like, they're awful. Yeah. Anyway, let's crack on. What are we down to? You're number three.
My number 3 film that I will never see is Avatar, the James Cameron film. It's just one of those films that's, when it came out, I remember going, "Oh, that was terrible." And I feel like now it's the kind of film I'm sure I'd feel some sort of pressure to watch it, but it just looked awful, and I had no interest in seeing it. And later on, I remember being flabbergasted when I found out, well, that's the biggest film of all time at the time. And I wasn't even aware of any of my friends seeing it. Do you know what I mean? It feels like a real cultural touchstone that almost like completely passed me by in a thing that I love. Like, like now, if someone said, "Oh, it's the biggest film ever," I go, "I should probably see that, I guess."
Yeah, because you
But
like.
yeah, I like films, and yet I just had no interest. But still, at that point, I still no interest in watching. Like everything about it should be interesting. Do you know what I mean? Like it should be like at some point there should be enough weight on it to make me go, "Oh yeah, well I got to watch it." But it just still feels like, and almost the thing that almost puts me off about it more is that thing where they keep going, "Yeah, they've basically planned out the next 8 sequels, and they're going to be coming out every Christmas whenever they start coming out again." And you go, "Oh God, well I'm definitely not watching it then," because the idea that I'd also be then expected to watch another 8 films that look like Avatar, and it's that as well. It's that sort of like, I like James Cameron films to a point, but when you look at everything about it, the whole aesthetic of it just looks kind of lame and badly done and a bit kind of like, no, thank you. No, thank you. No interest.
I may be wrong, but it feels to me like the moment has passed for sequels as well. I mean, that may prove not to be the case. They have a big marketing budget, and lots of people watched the film and liked it. So maybe there'll be big hits, but it really felt
I
like it
feel,
was left for years.
I feel like that. Like, but I'm taking it from the perspective of someone who I think I assumed was like, if you'd said to me, "Hey, that Avatar film, it made like £2 million at the box office," I'd be like, "Well, sure, of course it did." And yet, what actually happens is someone says, "Hey, Avatar film. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the biggest film that's ever been." Yeah, it's like, to me that's mind blowing. It's like, what?
Yeah, when it came out, it struck me as a kind of 3D Fern Gully,
Yeah, I
like
think
that
that is
was
what it is as
its
well.
level.
My understanding is that is what the film is. 3D Fern Gully. Crazy. What is your number 3?
My number three, you may have seen this, but this is the one you. Oh, actually, I would have thought. Yeah, okay, you may have seen this. My number three is 10 Cloverfield Lane from 2016. Now, I saw Cloverfield with you in the cinema, and I hated that film. I hated it so much. I was furious after watching that film. And I remember being in the pub with you and another friend of ours, and just I was angry and like bemused and just furious, and having a beer and just talking about how much I hate that film. I I like kaiju, I like big monsters. I'm don't have anything against the kind of device they use with the kind of camcorders and stuff and all that. That's all fine. I just hated the script. I hated the characters. I hated the kind of macho energy of the film. I just hated it. And there is no way on earth I would watch a sequel to that film. And
I
if he hadn't started making Star Wars films, which I feel like I want to watch, and they're fine, but like I would happily have never seen another film by that man in my life.
I similarly, well, I definitely dislike Cloverfield. I feel like I didn't dislike it with the same passion. I remember watching it and coming out of it feeling really like empty, and found like it was one of those, while I was watching it, it was kind of winding me up. Like just stuff where I kept going, why is this happening? Who is that? What are they?
Yeah.
Like characters would appear, and I'd be like, I don't even know who this guy is. Has he been in it before? Was he in it earlier? Who is this guy? It's always like that, and I'd get really annoyed at it.
Because it was the trailer that we all saw for the trailer for it in advance was like, wow, after that trailer, I got so many questions. I got to see this film. I got so many questions. And coming out of the cinema, I was like, I've got so many questions, you know? Ay.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those films that I find particularly frustrating. Is when this is a thing I find often. It's almost that I find them more frustrating when I feel like other people are really enjoying it. So you want to go, what's wrong with you? What have I missed then? Because I don't get what the thing is. What's the good bit? Like you want someone to go, hey, you missed a bit where like something really good happened, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I did miss that.
There's people we know that are like 10 years younger than us, but into similar things to us, who loved that film. You know, they loved it. And they were like, when they announced the sequel, it was quite a long time later, wasn't it? It was like 10 years later or something.
Yeah.
And when they brought out the sequel, they were like, yeah, I can't believe it's getting the sequel. I'm so excited. And I was thinking, I feel the absolute opposite. Like I have nothing but ill will towards that film.
I have seen 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I watched it because it did this thing on the trailer where it was it looks completely different. So it's a completely different type of film. It doesn't really appear to be linked to Cloverfield at all. So I was kind of, oh, this is interesting. Why have they? Oh, that's interesting. And it's basically about John Goodman kidnaps a young woman and keeps her hostage. So it feels like a kind of 90s thriller, but it's like it's part of the Cloverfield franchise. And you go, doesn't feel like it's got anything to do with Cloverfield. And I watched it, and the bit that was kind of intriguing me that I thought seemed like a 90s thriller, for like the first 45 minutes, I was kind of like, oh, this is all right. This is all right, actually. This is all right. And then the following 45 minutes, where it kind of resolves and becomes part of the Cloverfield franchise, I had a real like, I had that same thing again. And I went, oh, I hate this stuff. This is rubbish. And I had a real like, fool me once.
yeah. Shame on you.
And it was a real shame on me at the end of it. I felt like a fool, and I had this kind of, again, you know, that was the one. 10 Cloverfield Lane was a film I felt angry about because I was angry at myself. It was like, what I mean, it's not like it wasn't warned. It wasn't like, I thought it's awful, dreadful film, terrible, hateful. Good choice.
I'm definitely not going to watch it now. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is the film The Room, the hilarious film that is a terrible film, apparently, that's really like inept, and it's sort of funny because it's so inept, but has like, I think it's about domestic abuse or something, isn't it? I don't know. And but you sort of go, all right, yeah, the Room, yeah, The Room. You also, it's so funny, it's terrible, and it's exactly what you say. To me, I've got a limited amount of time. I like watching films. I'm not going to see all the good films. I'm going to die, and there's going to be loads of good films. And like, I worry that you'll get to some afterlife where someone says, "Oh man, did you see so and so?" And I go, "No," and it's like, that's the meaning of life, man. That's you missed the best one. And I'm like, what? I would feel a lot worse about it if they went, did you see that? I went, no, but I saw The Room. Have you seen that? It's quite funny. The guy like says a line in a weird way. And the guy goes, did you not see? And I go, no, I didn't see that one. I just find like the older I get, I can kind of understand that thing as a younger person going, "Oh, it's some terrible. You go watch this terrible film." And now the idea that that is at all appealing to me just makes you go, "No, I want to. I don't want to." And people often recommend stuff like that to me, and I find it a bit like I don't want to watch films that you think are bad. Like if you, um, basically, if you come up to me and say, "Ah, you know what? I saw this great movie," I will go, "Okay, well, I'll take that. I won't necessarily see it, but I'm going to add that to a tally chart, and I'll wait for another 30 people to tell me that's a good movie. And then I might be like, oh, yeah, yeah, I've heard this is a good movie." Or I'll probably more likely say, "What do you like about it?" And I try and get some gauge about whether, yeah, I like that, or I might like that. When it's someone saying, there's this really like terrible film, but it's kind of funny, and the guy who made it, I don't know, might have known he was making a terrible movie, but probably might not know, and he might be like the whole thing of it kind of makes me a bit sad as well. This guy who's like touring a film that he was trying to make like a good film, presumably. Like I'm sure no one tries to make a bad film, and he's now constantly touring this movie to like audiences in the Prince Charles who laugh at it, and he's like, yeah, yeah, it's funny, right? The terrible film I made. I find it a bit sad, and that he's selling like t-shirts and stuff, and it's just like, whoa. And that, like, to me, that's even worse. If it's like, hey, do you want to go see The Room? No, but the guy who directed it's going to be there. What? And listening to you laughing at his terrible film he made. Like, I'd much rather he wasn't there. Right? Like he's there at some point. There must be a bit of his like heart just breaks a bit, and he's like, sure,
Yeah,
okay. I mean,
that's the worst thing about going to the theater is if you don't like it, they're standing right in front of the at the end, looking at you, looking at your face, like, "Did you like it?" And you're like, "Oh, oh, bravo, bravo!" And you're thinking, "That was terrible. Get me out of here." That's the best thing about cinema is you don't have to look the people in the eye when it was bad.
yeah,
You know?
the idea that the guy who made it's and he popping up on screen and everyone's applauding and going, "Yeah, I want to have a selfie taken with this guy.
Yeah.
Hey, that film was terrible. Thanks for coming."
I've seen some of it. I was hanging out at somebody's house and they were like, "Oh, you haven't seen The Room? Oh, you got to watch it." And we were hanging out and talking, and they were like, "It's funny, isn't it? It's bad, and it's funny, it's bad." And I was like, "We're just talking. Like, I'm not really watching it, and yeah, it seems bad, and it's like comically bad, but I'm not really even watching it. So this is even worse. Like, yeah, it's not."
And also, I think they do things like, I think when people see those special screenings at the Prince Charles or whatever, it's got like audience participation, and it's like, oh, that's not a film then. Like the idea, I don't like audience participation during a film. If you want to clap at the end, happy with it. If you want to laugh when it's funny, happy with that. Don't laugh when it's not funny. I don't like. It's just like you're participating. It's not theatre, like you say. It's not theatre. They can't hear it. Don't do stuff. I find that it's also part. Which will probably come in with my number one choice in a minute. But there's something about that. I just find it embarrassing and like don't. It says more about me maybe. Like maybe I'm just not fun. Maybe I'm not fun. That doesn't appeal to me at all. I find it sort of deeply embarrassing. Like, no, I don't want to be in a room full of people enjoying something. I want to be watching a film that everyone's miserable at.
That's your quote. "I don't want to be in a room full of people enjoying something."
Sure. I mean, my favorite film is like if I see a film that's really, which is different from something like one of my favorite films is Kes. I'll come out of that film and be absolutely battered. I've loved it. Absolutely kind of.
It's funny though too. It's funny too.
Funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
Fuzzy, what is your number two?
My number two was on your list, Avatar. Avatar, like, and my number one will come back to this, but the first thing, so film is a visual medium, right? It's
Yeah.
aesthetics matter, right? So when you look at something, a trailer, a poster, we care about those things. You know, trailers is a good thing. You know, they get us interested. A poster, film posters are something. I got film posters hanging on the wall in this room. Film posters are an art of themselves. Aesthetics in the most powerful visual medium of the 20th century, it all matters, right? When I saw Avatar coming out, I was like, that looks horrible.
Does look horrible.
And I don't want to see that because it
Mm.
looks horrible. And
Mm.
nothing about its huge success made me reevaluate that. It was just like, you guys all think that looks great.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't. If they'd said it's, oh, you've got to watch it because it doesn't matter what it looks like, the story is so brilliant that it cuts through, or oh, you don't understand, it only looks like that in the trailer, in the actual film it looks fantastic. No, nothing like that. They were just like, it looks great, it's such a spectacle, I've never seen anything like it. I just hated how it looked, so I'm not going to see it. Simple as that. It's a visual thing. I would have to see it with my eyes, and I don't want to see that with my eyes.
Two things about that. I think some of them have got better now, like motion capture. I've seen like things in films where you go, oh yeah, that's actually, you've really improved on that. I can kind of see that. And again, like you've used motion capture, but there is like an aesthetic put on by some designer who's designed the character, and all you're watching is someone acting it. But what you're seeing is the design that someone's done well. That is poorly done and poorly designed. From the way I saw it, it just seemed like, well, it looks kind of ugly. Also, what I find kind of upsetting about that is that the James Cameron movies that I think are the best would be the first Terminator movie and Aliens, both of which have a really defined aesthetic, which is like, right, that's what James Cameron does. That's what his films look like. And then this is almost like saying, nah, I didn't really want it to look like that. I want it to look like this. And you go, well, that just makes me not want like your earlier films then. If that what you're going for, where it just, you sort of come up with something new. And it makes me think that, again, it's not, that feels to me like it isn't James Cameron's aesthetic. That feels like it's a film that's out of his control. Do you know what I mean? Where it's so much going on that he's, as a director, can't really be involved in because he doesn't have the skill set to be on top of all the design and all the motion capture. And basically people are showing him drawings like this one or this one. He's going, that one? And, you know, and I think that's partly the problem with a lot of big budget movies. Unless you have a real defined sense to begin with, or you have this huge kind of pre-production time to kind of really work on this stuff, all the kind of big things just seem to go out the window. And I don't know whose film that is. It looks like a pudding. It doesn't look like, you don't get the impression someone directed that film even. It's got that kind of, it's like, it feels like a committee kind of film that doesn't look like it's kind of for anyone, or who's this for? And again, who's this for? Apparently billions of people.
Billions of people? No, millions of people, billions of dollars. I'm never going to find out. I'm quite committed to it now. And there's something stupid and contrarian about all this. Like, oh, you just saying that's the biggest film, so therefore you don't want to see it because you want to be too cool for school. If that film was a flop, I still wouldn't have seen it. You know, like it's not that. It's that it's a mostly visual film, and I went yuck. You know, that's it.
Yeah, no interest.
What's your number one?
My number one is Moulin Rouge, 2001.
I've seen that.
Good. I mean, and I think it, again, I think it's aesthetics. And I've seen a few others of Baz Luhrmann's other films. I enjoyed Romeo plus Juliet. I thought it was like, I think that's an all right film. And to an extent, Baz Luhrmann's aesthetic, I go, sure, I get it. I get what you're going for. When it's, that feels like it's Baz Luhrmann up to 11. And there's something about it that makes me cringe. And going back to what I said about The Room, which is like being this kind of event that people, you know, they're really enjoying themselves and all having this communal time, having a great time. I think I mentioned this on someone else's podcast, and they said, I think you don't like Moulin Rouge because it's a film that is unashamed of itself, whereas you're the kind of person who is very ashamed of themselves. And I'm like, that's it. I think it's a film which is so unashamedly kind of essentially, but to me, it's so unashamedly shit. It's like, oh, I look such shit, and it's really proud of it. I find it like it looks really like, oh, and then you've got this kind of, all right, yeah, can you McGregor sing? No, it just like, oh, what's that? And you've got this sort of weird. You've got Jim Broadbent singing "Smells Like Teen Spirit" whilst dressed as a ringmaster from a circus, and you go, "What on earth is this?" Everything about it kind of just makes my toes curl, and it's something. And I guess all it can be is sort of aesthetic and the sort of boldness of it. I get totally that it's theatrical. I get that it is this sort of red curtain big film.
Yeah.
Yet there's something about that, and how sort of pleased with itself it seems to be. That it just sort of find myself being a bit like, oh
And
god,
you know, you're not someone who doesn't like musicals. You do like some musicals. You know,
oh yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah,
not someone who doesn't like kind of high camp and very
no
performance
problem.
stuff. You know, and
It's just I think it's like an alchemy or something. It just feels like it really touches all my buttons in a kind of and that
I think that you by mentioning Can You McGregor Sing, when I watched it, and I watched it, you know, on a small screen of an ex-girlfriend who was, it was like her favorite film, and she was like, "You haven't seen it, you have to watch it." And you know, okay, you know, under duress sort of thing. I'm pretty sure I won't like it. Okay, we'll just watch it and see. I think you'll change your mind. No, I didn't change my mind. But and what's weird about it is that it's like a music film, but they've gone, oh, do you know what doesn't matter is if anyone in it is good at singing. We just want big stars. It just wants to be starry. So it feels to me, it felt incredibly shallow, because it's like, I love music and singing. I don't really care how it sounds, but I just want the big show of the stars and the clothes and the stars and the effects and the thing. And you go, right, the one thing you want to nail down if you're doing a musical is the music, you know? And no, yuck. And it
and
has a
I,
cover of Lady Marmalade in it, which is one of my least favorite songs, and they made it worse. I mean, terrible.
I don't I don't hold it. I know people love it. People love it, and I don't really hold it against them. I don't go, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" It doesn't bother me. There's probably other films on my list I'd find much more disturbing if someone told me it was a film they really liked. And yet, for me, it's sort of personally just one of those things that, like, when I saw the trailer, I'm sure I was like scraping the arms of the chair a bit, like, it feels a bit like the Clockwork Orange thing for me. That it just feels like I'm watching some like horrible, like, oh god, what is that? That looks. It's that kind of cringy toe curling
Hmm.
trailer for a film, which lots of people said was good, but it's just like I don't think I could. I don't think I could see it. I don't think I could get through it. I've never walked out of a film, but maybe that's because I've never seen Moulin Rouge. I think it might be a bit much, like a bit too much. Like, this is too much. I just can't deal with that.
I like what you said about that. You know, you like people who like Moulin Rouge. You know, yeah, I know lots of people that like Moulin Rouge, and I like those people, and I respect them. It's not like a write off. You know, you're not a
Mm.
write off. You like it, but and that goes for my number one is very much the same thing, because everybody has seen my number one. Everybody has seen my number one, and everyone likes it. But I'm never going to see it, and that's going to be hard because I've got two kids, and they will come across it, and they'll be like, "We got to see it. Everyone sees it," and I'm going to say, "Okay, but I'm going out." You know, uh, that film is from 2001. It is Shrek. I am not going to watch Shrek, right? And it comes back to this aesthetics thing, right? I like 3D animation. I love Pixar. Pixar are amazing. Their films are phenomenal. They look beautiful. Even when they couldn't do it properly on the original Toy Story, they still look great, apart from the humans. But their films are phenomenal looking. it's not just about the quality of the effects and all this stuff. It's about the original drawings that you do, the thought that goes into it, how you light them, all these things. Everyone says Shrek is the best thing. It's so funny. It's hilarious. Blah, blah, blah. I hate how it looks. I hate the big green monster, ugly monster. I don't care if that's part of the plot. It looks awful. The world it's in looks awful. I just hate how it looks. And again, it's a visual medium. I have to look at it with my eyes, and it looks so bad. And I don't have any faith in the people who make those films. Pixar, I'll go and I'll see the Pixar films that aren't rated well. I'm like, I'm not sure about this one, but you've earned my trust. Shrek, no, I'm not going there. When I worked in HMV in like 2003, and I sold like a Shrek DVD every 5 minutes, for months. Everyone has seen Shrek. Everyone loves Shrek. It came out when I was 20 years old. I was 100% the worst age for it. Um, you've seen Shrek, right?
Yeah, I've seen Shrek, but significantly, I've never seen any of the sequels to Shrek. It's the thing is with Shrek is that it's not trash. The problem with Shrek is that if someone else had done it, it might have been quite good. There's like elements to it where you go, that's quite a good, like, I like Mike Myers. I got a lot of time for him. He's the voice of Shrek. He does a funny Scottish voice. That should carry it more. But it is a film which is like there's bits of it where you go, bits of the script are fine and quite funny. But like you say, the animation on it, especially the first, haven't seen the sequels, and I think they improved on it. But I guess it's partly that mixture of being quite crude in comparison to what we have of CGI now. But it's no excuse because, like you say, Pixar were dealing with cruder animation in the mid '90s, and we're still making something that seemed charming and nice and based on something. Yeah, the sort of character design on Shrek is really horrible, and people sort of occasionally turn up and go, "Oh, like look at the state of this guy who's turned up," and it's got that. And part of the problem with it, which you'd never get at Pixar, probably because that's what it is, and it comes from a background of Disney and Disney animators and people who have a love of Disney. That part of the thing of Shrek is this idea that it takes place in a fairy tale world, and partly what it's doing, which is probably the worst thing about it, is that it's trying to be slightly anti-Disney. So you have bits that are almost like parodies of Disney movies, and yet, like by its nature, you have to have things like, hey, you could have like a deer or something, or you could have a bit that's a bit like that bit from Snow White, or you could have a bit that's a bit like that bit from all these Disney movies. And because in their mind, and probably they don't want to get sued, they try and make it different from Disney. So it's like, well, obviously none of the characters look like they're from Disney. But when you're like an animator and you're almost told to be anti-Disney, what you come up with is almost aesthetically ugly and against what these guys who have been working on it since the 20s have decided. They're like, this is good animation and good character design and good. So it's almost like, even by its own nature, it's anti something that's really well done. And I think it fell at a time when there was quite a sort of cynical element about Disney.
Absolutely.
And the thing that I always had a problem with, it's like, sure, and I think you can definitely have problems with Disney as a company. But I think when you go back to the idea of like, but what you're saying is that the classic animated movies that you all adore and love, they're rubbish, are they? And that's the sort of thing of it where it's like, and they can do that. That's fine to do a parody or something. That's fine. Except for you've almost gone against, it's almost like trying to go against something which is intrinsically better than the thing you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So what you actually produce comes up and is by its nature, like it really fails in comparison to the thing that you are.
Yeah.
So it's like by putting yourself against something that is good, it's like you look shit. And it's a shame.
I get in conversations with people. There are people that you'll meet, and talking to other parents, they'll you know, sometimes we'll talk about things that kids watch and stuff, and you get parents who are like, oh, I hate all the 3D animation. I hate all the 3D animation. I hate Pixar. They'll be like, I hate Pixar, especially Shark's Tale. And I'm like, that's not Pixar, you know, like that's not Pixar. That's terrible. Derivative rip-off film, you know. With that time when they were like clearly had like a mole inside Pixar and they would make a film at the same time. They'd be like, yeah, we come out with ants, you know, to go up against Bugs Life or whatever. We got Shark's Tale and Finding Nemo. Like, and you get people, but people who are telling me like they hate Pixar, I don't watch any of that. I only like real animation with pens, you know. That's the real anime. I only like that, like as if you can't have both, you know. Probably people that don't eat ready meals, you know. Like it doesn't take any effort. It's like, look at that, look how long the credits are. That film employed like 8,000 people.
Yeah.
You think it's just a computer that does it, you know? You idiots. And but those people are, when they're saying this stuff, they're like, but obviously I like Shrek. Shrek is great, you know? And then I'm just like, I'll probably explode. You know, my blood pressure will be like 180 over 140. I'm sweating.
But also, like, that's the thing about Pixar, you know, like all those names that come up, all those multiple thousand billion names that scroll up in tiny font, kind of at the end of a film. It's like knowing people from comics where they go, hey, so and so in comics has got a job at Pixar, and you see their name coming up after like 6 minutes of credits, and you go, that guy in comics was one of the best artists. That was, or like someone who maybe did 2 years of comics and was like, oh, that guy's brilliant.
Yeah.
The idea that on a Pixar set, he's not even in the, he didn't direct it. He's down on like, he's like 6 minutes into a 10-minute credits that you go, oh, there he is. There, he designed, I think he designed like one of the dogs or something. And it's like, and their name goes past and you go, but the context of it is like, I know that guy's like a phenomenal artist. Yet Pixar, presumably all these other guys are as well.
Absolutely.
Like it's really employed some of the like best designers and cartoonists in the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully pays them very well. I'm sure they do. To basically try and have some of the best people in the world working on their films, which is like, that's how you probably make good product, you know?
Yeah.
That's almost like old Hollywood. That's like, well, let's get the smartest writers to write our screenplays then, and we'll just pay them loads. It's that sort of thinking that makes them kind of classic movies. It's not what
I'm sure Shrek is funny, and you know, I like Mike Myers a bit. I like him. The further back in time you go, the more I like him. I mean, I'm not going to see his Cat in the Hat film either, but like, you know, Shrek, it was the wrong moment for me when it came out, but equally I was seeing all the Pixar films when it came out, you know. It's just ugly to me and I don't want to watch it, and so I'm not going to. And there's going to be a showdown with my kids at some point, you know.
Oh, I don't think you'll like it either.
I'm not going to now.
It's not like, you know, like in another world they could have done it better, but they didn't. It's
20 years of not seeing it, so you know, I think I've committed now. I'm not going to live another 20 years, you know. I've broken the back of not seeing Shrek. I just need to stick to my guns now.
You might get away with it. I think, see, it's a good list. Turned out to be a good list, you see.
It's all right. It's a silly list, and we should all see everything and give it a chance.
Sure, that's why it's important to have exceptions and rules.
Yeah,
please. There's only 5. I'll watch the others.
Yeah, you're doing your best to watch all the other films apart from those 5, so that's good.
That's it.
It's very good. So wait a minute, you hadn't seen 3 of mine. I'm kind of surprised. I thought you would have seen them all.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right though. I mean, I can't imagine a time I might see Across the Universe. It doesn't feel like it's going to be, I don't know. I'll wait. There's some I'll hold back till, like I'll say, like if I reach 95, actually at that point I'm definitely going to be running out.
Your time's precious then, you know.
True.
I can see myself watching the Bee Gees 70s one before I'd watch Across the Universe.
Oh, I'd watch that tomorrow.
I don't think I would watch it tomorrow. Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure it's terrible. It's Elton, isn't it, as well?
it might be, could well be.
I think it's music by Elton and the Bee Gees. I mean, that's losing combination for me.
I'd watch it. I'd watch it. I'd like to see it. In fact, I'd like to see it. Um, by all means, if you want to comment somewhere or give us a review somewhere or something, and give us your top 5 films that you will never see,
Yeah,
take a look at them.
I think I think there's loads that I couldn't think of because it's a very hard thing to try and think of. Like
Mm,
what films you never see. It's hard to, some of them I've tried to suppress. Like when I
sure.
remembered Cloverfield, I was like, yes, of course, that. You know, I could do top 5 films I wish I'd never seen. You know, but
Sure.
but it's I've mostly purged them from my mind. So yeah, if you can think of any really really good ones to avoid, you know,
Let us know.
I've seen some bad films as well. Like it's not like I'm not that fussy. I've seen films for stupid reasons, you know.
Sure. Oh, I've seen endless bad films, but this is more. This is more like a thing. I think we've got to the bottom of it. I think what we're doing is basically I'm overhyping it, but I think we've created an idea of, you know. But also aesthetics is important, and
Aesthetics
we
is
should,
important.
we should perhaps give ourselves some more faith about films we're just not going to enjoy.
I think I just have like a block beyond a certain level. If a film looks unappealing to me, and I've got to sit there for like 2 hours being unappealed, that's too much. It's too much benefit of the doubt to give to something. Let us know what you won't see, and we'll all not watch them together. We're gonna have a mass not watch party. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
World of Proper would like to reassure concerned listeners and viewers that this show was recorded prior to the announcement for a Robbie Williams biopic by the director of The Greatest Showman.